Hey everyone, what is up? Welcome to the Daily Fan Racing live preview show. This week, we are playing ourselves squarely in the heart of corn country for the inaugural NASCAR Cup Series race at Iowa Speedway. That's right, the Iowa Corn 350. Iowa is not just about cornfields anymore. It's about corn-fueled action, corner-to-corner racing, and corn-tastic speed. There are a ton of unknowns today, and DFS players will need to navigate all the twists and turns of this corn maze of a slate without getting lost in the stalks. And who better to guide us towards harvesting some big wins than our very own DFS cornball, Ryan Larkin. Corn.
That was a very corny intro, Jason.
Yes.
Yeah, excited to dig into the slate with you. I always hate our off weeks, so glad to be back to do a show with you. This race is going to be bananas, from what I can tell. So it should, or if only there's some corn equivalent to the term bananas in terms of craziness. But yeah, it's going to be. I think it's going to be a tough slate. I think it's going to be wild and variance riddled. So. Buckle your seatbelts.
Yeah. Before we dive into, I do want to say Happy Father's Day, my man. Happy Father's Day to you. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I hope you can guide us fathers to a takedown. And this is a weekend where I know I need to lean on you, man. Like I don't know what the hell to do. Like you've kind of mentioned it, right? We're at a new track. We have some variables we're going to get into that makes this slate kind of wicked. I feel like I don't even know what to do. I feel like we're either going to the slate is going to be a chaotic race or it's just going to be a snooze fest, single file, nobody can pass race. And it's like neither one of those I'm getting excited about as from a DFS standpoint. So tell me again why we're here, why we're playing outside of maybe a gambling problem. Why else are we here willing to put money on this?
A gambling problem. I mean, that's it. It's this. I'm telling you, there is nothing that's probably going to be good that comes out of this race unless you can get a lineup to the end. I do think the one good part about higher variance races, which I think this will be, is the fact that it eliminates a lot of lineups. You'll see a lot of chalk die. You'll see a lot of highly owned drivers have issues. And then that results in, if you can get a lineup through, not is it just man cashing, it has the opportunity for winning big. And that's what we're always chasing. So I do like that aspect of it. I know it can, if you play this slate wrong, you can end up on the bad side of it, similar to the Xfinity race for me, where it's just like every lineup had a guy crash out, right? And sometimes that happens. But if you don't have that, if you get one through, then you're in great shape. So from a gambling high, it can be a really good one, but it could also be a really bad one as well.
Yeah, for sure. And let's get into all those different aspects and everything and why exactly, like why this race is going to be chaotic and like what's making this race lean to that chaotic side on your point of view first. But before we get into that, guys, if you're just finding the channel, just getting into this, just find us, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're close in getting towards that 600 number, right? I think we're getting up close to that, guys. Help push us up to that. Hit that comment. Tell us about how great of a job we're doing here. Tell us about, all the money you've won, put those comments in there, like, subscribe, tell your friends. Okay. Now, Larkin, now that that's out of the way, so you've said there's going to be chaos. So walk us through what happened. Because cars got on the track yesterday for practice, right? And some shit hit the fan, right? So walk us through what happened in practice and why we think it's going to be chaotic.
Yeah. So we had a lot of tire issues in practice. And it's not the good kind of tire issues. We had 3 Toyota cars have tire issues. Bell smacked the wall hard, went to a backup. Reddick ended up with one at the end of the practice. And then I think Cindric had a tire go down as well. Those are just ones I remember right now. I can't remember.
Too, right? Did you say him? Chastain too, right? Didn't he lose one?
Yeah, Chastain. But Chastain's was a left rear, which is a little bit different. I'm really concerned about the right fronts, not the left rear. Okay. So I think Chastain's may have been more circumstantial than kind of what the other ones are. But yes, I mean that's another tire issue, and that probably stems from running the air pressures too low in Chastain's case, would be my guess. But maybe he just ran something over. I don't know. I haven't heard anything on that one. The issue with the right fronts is that they were only making it 20 laps, and 20 laps is not a long time, and it's not the type of situation where, and I want to get into the Bristol aspect in a second and kind of compare them, but leading into a race where you have a 50-minute practice session, you see these things happen, they are going to be able to adapt some, but I don't think they're going to really have a whole lot of answers for the problem we're having. And that's where I think this race is going to see a lot of tire problems. I think there's going to be
So
a lot
you
of
don't think this is a fix the tire pressure, fix the camber, and we're going to
tire
see
pressure is probably going to make it worse, and that's kind of the downside. There's not, and we saw that with and we don't know what happened with Austin Hill in the Xfinity race, but they were running higher pressures throughout the entire race because they saw their issues, and he still blew a tire.
I didn't watch the whole Xfinity race. I saw he blew a tire. Was there quite a few guys that still blew tires in the Xfinity race?
There was 6 or 7 that actually brought out cautions through blowing a tire and hitting the wall. But then you had several guys pitting on the green or because the tires were getting ready to grenade. I mean, there is a very serious issue when it's happening on the Xfinity side. It's a very big issue, and then on the Cup side, I think it's going to be even worse. But it's not like the Bristol situation, and that's going to be the key to this is. And I'm going to pull up Jasper's question here. When building, should we focus on veteran drivers who we can trust to manage tires like Bristol? The answer is no. I mean, yes, to an extent, you can trust Hamlin and Truex or what have you, but the issue at Bristol was the tires were graining. So they would just kind of wear off and get to the cords. And then once you're in the cords, you have no rubber left, and then it would blow out. This is blistering. This is temperatures getting too high in the tire, and then they're just exploding.
It's no fall off, right? Very little fall off.
Fall. Right? It's not a fall off issue. It's not the surface of the tire going away and getting to the cords. It's a physical blister underneath the tire surface that's exploding. And basically, the only way to combat this is to get tire temperature down. And I don't know how the hell they're going to do that. It's going to be 95 degrees tomorrow in this race. They're going to be hot as hell. And 20 laps into a run, every single time it was 20 laps into a run in practice that a tire would start to fail. Some of these times we're going to have to go 30 laps. At what point are we just going to say, yeah, every 25 laps, somebody's going to have a tire going down? Maybe it's 30. Maybe they do take a little camber out.
Not the first time we've seen that, right? We've seen that several times in the past.
Yeah, it's not a tire wear issue where the tire's wearing off. It's literally just blistering. So if they keep getting hot, then they're screwed. Now, I do think they'll do their best to get with Goodyear to figure out little ways to make it better, but it's extending the period until the tire blows. I think it's almost an inevitability that someone on a run is going to have a blown tire. Now, that could equate to someone smacking the wall like Bell did or like Allgaier did in the Xfinity race, or like we saw some big hits already this weekend. Or it could be a situation like Gibbs, and Zach brought up that Gibbs had one as well in practice, and he did, but his went down the backstretch. Like when you look at some of these blown tires, they're happening on the straightaways because they're too hot. It has nothing to do with turning even. They're getting so hot. And then Gibbs went down on the front stretch. Jeb Burton went down the front stretch in the Xfinity race. They're just getting too hot. And I some guys will be able to get down pit road and avoid it. Some guys won't. Some guys are going to smack the wall. Some guys are going to feel the blistering, feel the vibration, and say, yeah, I can't do this anymore. I'm bringing it down. And that's what we saw there in the Xfinity race on that last run where Moffitt, Ryan Sieg, Josh Williams, who kind of stayed out on older tires, they came down pit road early in that run. And we saw a few guys do that where they're just like, yeah, we're not going to risk it. We're going to come down pit road because we feel the vibration. We feel it going down or feel the issue about to happen. So for me, I think the slate's going to see a lot of that. And I don't know what to tell you on who it's going to be. Like, it's not like at Bristol, we saw because the Toyotas are so much better at taking care of their tires that Hamlin, Truex, Gibbs, that whole group was really good at Bristol when that came into play. It's not the same situation here. It's not about maintaining life of your tires. It's about just keeping the temperature out of them. And now the Toyotas were the ones that had all the issues in practice. So I'm very, very concerned with that. And it gets me skittish to be too heavy on anybody. There will be drivers that avoid it. There will be drivers that, for whatever reason, keep the temperature out of their tires or are able to avoid that, or the setups within teams are good enough to kind of limit that, and they just never have an issue, and they have a great day as a result. and then some guys are going to be affected.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really just going to have to outlast for the first person to smack the wall and get a caution, and you come out and get your tires, right? It's about who. It's almost going to be like we have a race, last person across the finish line, they drop out, they're out. It's almost like an old all-star format. It feels like we're just going to randomly take a car out of the race every 30 laps until we got like 5 cars left at the end of this race, right? And you've mentioned something there, right? It doesn't seem like there's any way to predict this, right? It's not indicative to one manufacturer, right, or one team, right? It's just can be anybody, right? I mean, can they drive slower? Maybe, like, I don't know. I mean, would the slower cars maybe have an advantage when maybe their tires aren't as hot?
Yes, I mean, yes, 100%. You got guys. And the other concern I have is the pace of the track. And that leads into kind of what you're saying is we saw a big change from the practice session to qualifying in terms of pace within the track, especially for that first group that went in qualifying, because there wasn't a lot of heat in the track. So there wasn't as much grip. The more heat you get into the tires on the track, the more it grips, but that creates more friction, which creates more heat, which just exacerbates the issue. And also going faster is going to create more heat. And so when you look at, guys like Reddick or Gibbs or the Toyotas, who I think are some of the fastest cars on this style of track, it wouldn't surprise me to see them overcook it. And we kind of had that issue, if you remember, with the initial year of the next gen and Atlanta, where whoever got the lead, they were pushing it a little bit more, and all of a sudden their tire would blow. But guys that were running 20th, they never had an issue. It kind of reminds me of that, where if you do overextend the tire, if you put more pressure on it, then you run a greater risk of that happening to you, right? So there is something to be said for pacing yourself, not running extremely hard, especially early into the run and things like that. So yes, I do think someone that maybe is like, I'll throw Daniel Hemrick out there because he just kind of sucks. But I can see Daniel Hemrick just riding around, not putting as much stress on his tires, but avoiding all the chaos and just being 15th. And you're like, how the hell did you do that? And then you realize he just didn't overextend himself. He kept his car on the track. He stayed on the lead lap. He kept tires underneath it and got a good finish. So I do think that's possible. It just depends. It really is going to depend on how it plays out. I don't know. And it could be better. It could be a situation where they can extend it 40 laps and then they kind of get into a window, but you can go 80, 90, 100 laps on a fuel run, right? So if it just stays green, I feel like at some point someone's blowing the tire, and that's where
it's not going to stay green. It's not going to go longer than 30, 35 laps. It sounds like, right? I mean,
correct. That's what I feel like. And maybe I could be wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but everything we've seen from practice to the Xfinity race to the new surface is just creating so much grip, which is creating so much heat in the tires that they're blowing.
All right, so you're starting to worry me here a little bit, right? So I'm assuming you have a strategy for us. You have an approach for the slate of what you, because right now I'm feeling like I want to go into this. I'm going to play light. I'm going to play one lineup, and I'm just going to play position differential and just let it fall where it falls. Is the way I'm looking at it right now. Tell me what you're looking at. Are we still looking at dominators here? I mean, are we still like looking to chase fast laps? Like are we approaching this like a normal slate, or are we going to lean into the carnage?
There's a lot of dominator points on the table, so we still want to.
But if they blow a tire, right? I mean, Kyle Larson's blowing a tire, right?
That's certainly a risk.
Ain't no way Kyle Larson's getting to the end of this fucking race, right? I mean,
well, he's kind of the best at everything. And, you don't know what lap 25 would look like for everyone else, right?
But you did just say, though, hold on. You did just say, like, it's not about how hard they're running, right? Or too hard, or it's not about.
There's going to be a lot of circumstantial things that play into that. It's going to be set up partly. It's going to be, air pressure partly. It's going to be certain things and driving styles and things of that nature that are going to make that happen.
Do you think they'll be passing? Do you think they'll be passing? Do you think they'll be passing on the track outside of wrecks? Do you think they'll be actually able to move through the field?
There will be, because people are going to wear out their tires and they're going to feel that blister and they're going to get that vibration. They're going to start losing lap time. And that's when the passing is going to start happening. The issue we saw in the Xfinity race is that, and this was always the issue with Iowa. This is why Iowa was one of my least favorite tracks. that middle groove is more powerful on corner exit than the bottom. So the faster car behind, they can dive down to the bottom all they want, but they can't get up off the exit. And so they never actually complete the pass. And that was always the issue with Iowa. When I saw the replay, I was like, well, shit, if that makes the bottom groove right up against the white line, the better groove, that'll make the racing better. Just like the Bristol situation where it's like, once you get the groove down to the line on Bristol, they start beating the hell out of their back bumpers and getting each other out of the way. The issue with the track now is that second groove appears to be better, carrying momentum, same the way it used to be with old Iowa, and that makes passing so difficult. The passing we're going to see is going to come from the tires wearing out. It's going to come from someone, pushing a little too hard and creating issues with their tires. They start to feel that vibration. They start to feel those issues, and so they kind of back off it, where someone who maybe didn't take off as fast, like a Denny Hamlin, who's just going to kind of ride for a little bit and then push on the late end of the run, that might – that's where you're going to see the passing. I don't think you're going to see passing because of being able to pass or the track allowing it. It's literally just going to be because of the tires getting wore out through the blistering. Or when you look at these guys drive into the corners, they're on the edge. You see these guys and they're losing it quite frequently, where they're kind of getting a little too high. They're getting too loose entering, and they're slipping up the track. So I do think that will present passing opportunities as well, where someone just loses it. But in terms of just making a pure pass, I don't think it's going to be that easy. It's not going to be something where they're all within 2 or 3 tenths. They're all running the same lap time. So at the end of the day, it's still going to be a battle of aero, track position, and then,
still going to be difficult to move through
the same battle we've dealt with everywhere. So just the way you can do it is by making your tires work a little bit better and not making mistakes. The guy that makes the mistake and gets up the track because it gets loose, they're going to have an issue.
All right. I promise, guys, we're going to get into driver breakdown. I have one more probably stupid question here. It's just thought that. So do you think like the drivers out front, would tires be cooler since they're out front?
Not necessarily. It shouldn't really matter. The only way that I think that impacts it is like if Kyle Larson gets the lead on the race start, he can kind of chill, right? He can kind of ride. He can pull back a tenth or two a lap. He doesn't have to push as hard because he's got the lead, and it's going to be really hard to pass the leader. So I think guys can manage a little bit better. Whereas if you're running 27th and you're just in the pack and you're trying to gain position, you're trying to do things, that's going to be a little bit harder.
Or does the opposite? Does an extra downforce right in the front provide more force on the tires and maybe cause them to get hotter?
It does. Yeah, it does. I mean,
maybe I don't know.
You're right. More grip. So anyone that's running faster with more grip, they're going to put more heat in the tires. That's just the way it is. Real quick, David asked how many sets for tomorrow. They have 10, according to Bob Pockrass. So 10 sets, 350 lap race. Got to go 35 laps per set. Or I guess, no, that's not true because you have a set on the car. So that should be set 11, I think. So maybe they got to go like 30 laps per set or something. But
wow.
Not feeling good about it. If I'm
Nobody
being
ran
honest.
30 laps in practice, right? I think Chase Elliott ran the longest, didn't he?
And that's the thing. We saw basically every 20 laps someone had an issue. So once Bell brought out the caution, everyone came in. I don't know who did what afterwards. And once you scuff a set, it does hold up a little bit better. Right. So honestly, NASCAR should like have these teams just scuffing every set right now. That might be the best move. But I don't know. For me, I don't know how long the Hendrick cars are going to be able to go. We just saw the Toyotas have issues at lap 20. We don't know if like everyone else will have issues at lap 25 or lap 30. We don't know what that time frame is. So it's weird. I'm not looking forward to it from a DFS perspective because it makes it really hard. But I think from an entertainment perspective, I think it could be cool. Like most of the people I follow on Twitter or don't follow, but pops up in the For You section, were saying how much they liked the race today. To me, I hated it. It's like guys were just blowing tires and it wasn't a real race. But monkeys love cars hitting walls and they love restarts. So you get those restarts, you get those crashes, you get that variance, you get the lead swapping, you get things happening. That does make for a more entertaining race. So I think from like an entertainment standpoint, it could be somewhat fun. But at a point, if we do see these high, tire blowout rates and things that I'm fully expecting, to me, it's just going to become like this is stupid. This is annoying. You didn't plan very well. Why the hell did you repave it? And why the hell did you repave it if you weren't going to give him enough time to properly prepare a tire for it or whatever?
Yeah, it is gonna be crazy. It is gonna be ridiculous. It is gonna get to a point where it's like, okay, this is stupid. But I will say, it'll still be a hell of a lot better than what the alternative would have been coming here with a good tire and just riding the bottom, nobody passing, 350 laps, nothing going on, and just hoping something happens.
And that's the thing. Yeah, I think it's a more entertaining race.
It's going to suck from a DFS standpoint.
My job is to predict these things, and it's like
we'll cut your break this week, but let's get through some guys. So, how do you want to do this week? Do you think track position is going to play key? Is that where dominates come from? You want to start from the front of the field, work back? You want to start from tops to salary down? How do you want to do it this week?
Let's just do starting position, because I think it helps us group in.
Yeah,
like, hey, the top 8 are still in dominator positions. They have to lead laps to matter and things like that. So let's start at the
top of the board. You mentioned them earlier. I talked about a man on the pole, looks to be fast in practice, right? You look at short tracks, short flat tracks. He's been rated up there tops in the since the start of 2023. Couple wins, all right. I mean, he's been solid this year, right? I think Kyle Larson, if you're looking for dominator points, he's going to be a popular choice, right? Probably the favorite. I haven't looked at odds.
It's your job, man. Yeah. For me, Larson's the favorite to win. Right now, he's plus 425, which puts him the favorite on DraftKings, just slightly over Denny Hamlin. You look at short flat tracks over the past 2 years, he's been top 5 in almost every race. You're talking about a guy who's elite on short tracks. He's elite everywhere, but elite on short tracks, has dominator ability. He led, I think it was 144 laps at Richmond and then 86 at Martinsville after starting on the pole in both races. He's obviously going to be very good. For me, it really is going to come down to, does he have that ability to lead 100-plus laps? And does the potential for more pit stops, if you envision a race where there's 100 laps to start, because there is, but we're thinking, okay, he leads the first 100 laps, but you're probably going to have 3 pit stops in that span, maybe 2 or 3 pit stops and 2 or 3 restarts, and potentially the opportunity for him to lose the lead in that span. And we're still talking about a guy who's really expensive. If we look at that Martinsville performance, he led 86 laps and he wasn't optimal as the second highest scorer on a slate because of pricing and other really good scores. So I do think Larson's the best pick to dominate early. I do think he should be the favorite to win this race, all things considered. I do think we're going to see throughout the race the track change a lot. 94-degree heat is going to make that track slick. It's going to make it challenging. So he could lead early and then fade. He could end up as a 7th-place car. There's a lot of things that can play into, or he can lead all 150 laps or 350 laps. Excuse me. He could just keep. I look back at Keselowski at Darlington, and it was like he never left the top 3. Every pit stop was good. Every lap he ran was good. He was so consistent. It was like, you have to be that good to win a race at the Cup Series level. And at some point, if Larson has a bad stop or kind of has a bad restart, he may never see the lead again. Mm-hmm. And so that's what has me concerned a bit with him. But he also has that ability to, with the number 1 pit stall, with the fastest car potentially, to just go out there and smash the field. And we're always going to want to lean into that. The favorite heading into the race, he's going to see a ton of ownership. He's got huge upside. He's a great play. But what happens if he doesn't hit? You're looking at a guy's probably 45, 50% owned. That's where he's going to be on a slate like this. How does that work out? And can you get underweight on that play? Potentially blows tire, potentially loses the lead, what have you. We don't know how these cars are going to handle in 95-degree heat. It was 80 degrees when they qualified today. It's a completely different track. It was 85 or 80 degrees and overcast. It's a different track tomorrow. So we'll see what the race is like. I do think, in my head, 95 degrees and sunny leads me to think Toyotas are going to be great. That's the type of setup they like, right? And maybe Larson's just that good because he's going to dominate. But I don't know. I'm interested because I don't think it's clear cut that he's just going to be the guy.
I think if anybody's going to, it's probably going to be him. I think he said,
yeah.
So, obviously he's got the track position, which we all know, short flat tracks, you want to lean into the guy start on the pole. If this was Austin Cindric starting on the pole, we'd probably be playing him on a short flat track, right? I mean, it's just
with McDowell Gateway, right?
Yeah. Michael McDowell,
flat tracks.
right? But this ain't Michael McDowell, right? Kyle Larson, just put in perspective, 7 top 5s in the last 10 short flat track races, right? I mean, that's pretty remarkable. 2 wins, right? Best average finish. So if there's a guy that's going to dominate, we know it's probably going to be Kyle Larson. I'll say he is an amazing short track driver. Like that? Get it, Corn? Okay, let's move on. Another guy who's pretty good at the short flat tracks, starting on the outside. Didn't show a lot of speed in practice, but we know like Ryan Blaney and Penske guys are typically, and Fords, these guys are typically pretty good on the short flat tracks, right? Starting outside pole, looked like his teammate Joe Logano had a little bit of speed in practice. So if you like Blaney, do you have interest here in Blaney at 900, 800? I feel like that's a miss on price for a 9,800 for Blaney on a short flat track.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. I think that's just down to the odds. I think going into the race, they were definitely higher on. I mean, they had Bell at like plus 380, right? Heading into the week. So they were very high on Toyotas, very high on Larson and stuff. So I think that's just a product. But also, Larson's what, 11K? We don't have someone at 11,500 like we should, 11,300. Like our prices across the board are a little bit low for this style of race, 350 laps. So that helps drop Blaney down. Yeah, I think his 10-lap average is a lie, if I'm being honest. I'm actually doing some other write-ups, and I need to look into that period. But, he in the 10-lap average, he's 28th. But when you look at overall lap time, he's 7th. I think most likely what happened is he either had a really bad lap or backed off for a lap within that 10-lap average, and it just skewed it to an effect, to an extent. I don't think he's a 20th place car. I think he's obviously going to be a top 10 car. My issue with Blaney is when we go to Gateway or Phoenix, we've seen that practice speed. We've seen the qualifying speed. We've seen the elite speed the entire weekend. Whereas so far, with the 50-minute practice, we didn't see that. So whereas at Gateway, we saw him. He was elite. Logano was elite in practice. We kind of pegged them to be the guys. I don't know if we're going to get that same dominator upside. But with that said, he's starting second. We know they've been really good, on short flat tracks, Phoenix and Gateway specifically. Wouldn't be surprised to see him lead at some point. I certainly favor the JGR Toyotas for speed, 2311 with Reddick or the HMS cars. Like there's still that group of like 6 guys I favor over Blaney. But Blaney's one of 6, 7, 8 guys that I think you should really mix in as dominators, who I think are the best or most likely guys to do it. So I do like him as a play, but I think he's, even though starting second, I think he's a bit of a pivot off of Larson, or maybe a guy you pair with Larson, but he's got to run up front the entire race in that scenario. So starting second always gets me worried about drivers. Anyone starting at the very front always gets me a little worried, because if they do drop back to 7th, 8th without any laps led, it makes some bad plays. On the positive note here, good pit selection, good driver, really good driver on this style of track. The fact that there's no extreme tire wear, like at Richmond where he struggles, he doesn't have that issue here. It's not a high tire wear track. It's a blistering track, right? So I don't think the tire situation is going to work against him like it happens at Richmond, like it happens at other high tire wear tracks. This is probably going to be a good situation for him from that perspective. So I think Blaney is live. It's really going to come down to how's this car handle in the race. And I want to reiterate this, and I'll hopefully do this for the last time, but it's going to be really fucking hot. And the track's going to be slick. It's going to be challenging. And whoever's a little bit too loose, they're going to struggle. Whereas if someone's just hooked up just right, they have the ability to go out there and be really damn good. And I can see Blaney being that guy. So there's going to be a few guys over the next 8 or so that we talk about that fall into this. They could lead if they have the right setup and their car's handling right for the conditions. And Blaney's certainly at the top of that list because of what we saw at Gateway, what we've seen on short flat tracks with no tire wear. Like as long as there's no tire wear, I've always got Blaney in there in the mix.
All right, so you mentioned there was about 6 to 7 guys you felt like you'd like to probably have above Ryan Blaney. So let's go to row number 2 here. Are any of those guys here in row 2 between Josh Berry and William Byron?
Well, Berry's a no.
Yeah.
And that's rough because I do think Berry has the potential to run top 10. It's just I'm not picking him to lead. I will say we saw at Richmond, he had a really good first stint. If you remember at Richmond, similar track type or I shouldn't say type, but layout, like similar corner banking, similar things like that. So they obviously have a good setup for the track, but without the place differential, it's going to be really hard for him to reach the value. He is cheap, and maybe he can stay top 6 or something all race, but we can't. I'm not going to bank too much on Josh Berry finishing at the front, right? Like he just hasn't done it consistently enough. William Byron is a very good dominator threat, and I shouldn't have said that I like him over Blaney, or I shouldn't have said that there's 6 guys that I like over Blaney. But Byron's definitely one of those guys that I have in my dominator pool that I think has the ability to lead just like Blaney does. The issue with Byron is he's extremely hot or cold. Like,
has he had speed recently? Like, I'm just trying to remember. Like, what has he like showed up and gave us dominator points? When was the last time he's done that for us?
Probably
like
Martinsville when he won.
Yeah, it's been a while. I feel like, right? And like,
but that's always his MO. And by the way, he's got plenty of wins and he's locked into the playoffs in a nice spot. They could be testing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's like I feel like they just haven't came out with like that, like the dominating speed, like getting towards the front. Like he's been like, top 4.
He was pretty
5,
strong at Charlotte, but that doesn't equate to this.
Like top 4, top 5. I'm thinking is what like he's not a bad car. He's just not like fast laps leading and spending time out front. I feel like I don't know. It's been maybe that's just like I said. I'm not looking at stats. I'm just thinking, from watching races over the last 2 to 3.
Yeah, he was pretty good, I think, at Dover, like pretty strong there, and he definitely was strong at Charlotte. Okay. But that's, again, I don't think that's equating as much here. The thing with Byron is, like at Martinsville, when he hits, he looks great. He looks like $1 million, and you're like, wow, William Byron is that damn good. But then he has these races where, like in Gateway, where he finished 15th, and you're just like, he's non-existent.
Right.
And I don't know which one we're going to get, and that's what worries me. You look at his track record throughout the last 3 years, it's like spike weeks where he wins or he finishes third, lots of laps, lots of fast laps, and then there's weeks where he's just 15th. There's almost no in between. It feels a lot more of ups and downs. And so while he is in the dominator mix, it's like I can also see this play going very wrong, and that has me concerned. But HMS cars are strong this week. I think Byron's going to be quick. I think, again, you're talking about a guy with a good pit selection, good overall situation. He's in play. And, anyone starting at the front, if he moves to third or second and then wins the race off pit road, all of a sudden he's just set up to lead, the next little section. So I do think Byron has the potential. I'm not like super high. I'm actually probably higher on Blaney than I would be Byron in that spot.
That was going to be my next question. Who would you like more, Blaney or Byron there?
Yeah, I'd say I probably trust Blaney a little bit more, but I wouldn't be surprised if either led. So I think they're both in play. I think there's a few guys, and that's the hard thing with this particular car. We talked about a lot. There's a lot of dominators, potential dominators, a lot of guys that can go up there and lead. And it really just comes down to circumstances. Good pit stops, good, track position, good restart, whatever. All of a sudden you find yourself at the front and you get the lead for a little bit. So the one good thing is I don't think we're going to see a lot of tire strategies. I think for the most part, everyone's taking tires. So you won't see as much of that shuffling. But maybe someone risk it on two tires. Maybe someone says, hey, the lefts aren't really wearing. We're going to take right sides here. And they jump to the lead. And there is no tire fall off. So I do think they could hold it.
All right, let's skip on down here to row number 3 and talk about a couple Fords here we have in this row. We have the man who's been on tear, right? Brad Keselowski and then Chase Briscoe. You like any of these guys to nominate? I imagine you probably like some Brad Keselowski. Are the bells going off again for Brad Keselowski? He's starting 5th. Average starting position on short flat tracks is around 16th. So are your bells going off?
Yeah, they're going off with Brad again. So Brad tested here, which is a big feather in the cap. So did Larson and Bell. So those are the 3 guys that tested here. With Brad, you saw him run really good at Richmond, finished 4th at Phoenix, finished 3rd at Gateway. He's obviously been killing it here recently. And yeah, it's again, if you got a guy like this who's qualifying well, it means this car is going to be good. And that doesn't surprise me. He ran a ton of laps here at the test. And so they're going to be pretty dialed in. And this has always been a Brad Keselowski style track. Like he's always been great at this style of track. And so this is no surprise here. I'm never going to pick him over the other teams, which is maybe my issue. Is like I see Larson, I see Blaney, I see Byron, I see Hamlin and Reddick and these other guys where I'm like, those are the real dominator threats, and those are the guys I'm going to invest more in, But maybe that's the wrong way to look at it. Brad just doesn't dominate. He doesn't lead a ton. Darlington was a special scenario because I felt like he could really dominate that race. I thought they had the best car and he ended up getting the job done. But, you don't really see him. He has a great
scoring fast laps though. These last 3 to 4 races, has he not? Like, am I wrong thinking that he's had that kind of speed where he's been scoring the fast laps?
Yes, Charlotte he did. Charlotte he had a ton of fast laps, but that's not. Charlotte doesn't.
I'm just saying he's had speed like over the last month. He's been showing up and scoring dominator points, and now he's starting fifth. Like, I think you got to start putting up there with those guys. He had
a bunch of Darlington and Kansas and Charlotte. He had a really good race at Gateway. I don't want to take that away from him. But at the end of the day, he had 12 fast laps at Gateway in a 300-lap race. Right now, part of that's because Bell was so absolutely dominant and Blaney was extremely strong. And Brad was he got the lead for a little bit of time through pit cycles and stuff, but like he was a good car. He was definitely a top 5 car, top 10 car. He wasn't a race dominating car. And that's kind of what Brad is for me, is that he's going to get a handful of fast laps, 8, 10, whatever, and finish maybe 5th. Right. Maybe he finishes 3rd, maybe he finishes 7th, but I think he's going to finish up front. I think he's going to run up front the entire race.
So you put Brad behind Larson, Blaney, Byron?
Yeah, so I don't really have Brad necessarily as someone I'm picking outright as a dominator. I don't even know if he's in my dominator pool.
You ain't playing Brad then, right?
Well, he's 9,200.
So you're not playing.
He absolutely can come in as a stud play. We're talking about a slate where there could be a lot of variance. We could see one guy dominate a ton. We could see dominators have tire issues that blow out. We saw that in the Xfinity race. Chandler Smith dominated the first half of the race and finished like 11th. He wasn't even in the ballpark at the end. Allgaier blew a tire. John Hunter Nemechek blew a tire and ruined his race. Like, it's not outside the realm of possibility in this style of race for the leaders to have issues, or the guys that dominate for a little while to have issues and not deliver. And then on top of that, I do think Brad can finish 3rd with 15 fast laps and score 50, 55 points. Like, I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility. So why not, as a tournament option, play him? If he does get the lead, great. Like, he's not someone I'm going to go out of my way and be like, yeah, I'm going to be super heavy on Brad, but a high variance race with a guy I think is going to run top 5 the entire race and get some fast laps, why not? I think it's a fine tournament play. Is it someone I'm going to be heavy on? No. Super exposed to? Absolutely not. But as a contrarian target, yeah, he's definitely in the mix.
We don't need to talk about Chase Briscoe, right? Or do we?
Top 10 speed in practice. Briscoe's actually been pretty solid all year. It's really tough to stomach.
He does 6 top 10s and 10 short flat tracks.
Yeah, I mean, he's quietly been consistent. He's been very quietly consistent. And the whole Stuart Haas thing has kind of made everyone feel like he's bad, but he was 9th at Phoenix. He was 10th at Martinsville. He was 17th at Gateway, but Gateway could be a little bit weird. Like, he's always been good on short flat tracks overall. And his speed in practice was good. Do I think he's a great play? No. Is a risk? Yes. But could he just finish 7th? Possibly. He's very affordable. I mean, you're talking about a guy at 7,400, so maybe he gets a bunch of. 7th
doesn't do enough, though, right? 7th doesn't do enough, does it?
I don't know. I mean, 7th.
I like him because I'm sitting here looking at him thinking like if he's 6,200, I like him starting 6th. Like, but 7,400, it seems like he's got to.
It's a little high. Yeah, it's a little high to make it work. But man, maybe he has 10 fast laps, or maybe he gets the lead for 20 laps. Like, I don't want to write him off yet.
Maybe a lot of things can happen. I don't know. Right?
A lot can happen. If I play 10 lineups, no, I'm probably not getting to him. But I think he's worth a small sprinkle if you play a lot of lineups. I don't think that's a driver you want to completely rule out.
All right. Let's move on down to row number 4 here. It looks like we're on Kyle Busch, Tyler Reddick. It looks like Tyler Reddick had some speed in practice. Not a guy you typically think of on the short flat tracks. We know, RCR has been shit on short flat tracks. So I don't think we have too much focus there on Kyle Busch. Where are you looking at here on these two guys?
Yeah, I'm not in on Bush, but Reddick I am. Reddick's actually been really good at Phoenix. I mean, definitely in the next gen card, been super strong at Phoenix. And then he's
One
looked.
top 5 in the last 10 short flat tracks.
I don't. I mean, that's not. I don't even know if that's true, but I'm looking
It's
at
true.
looking at his results. He's third at Phoenix last year. He was really strong at Phoenix earlier this year. Ended up 10th, but he's way better than that. Way better than that. He potentially should have won that race. Gateway, he was 4th here recently. He was 7th at Martinsville, 10th at Richmond, and he's not very good at those tracks. Toyota's been best on short flat tracks this year, and Reddick's been fast all year on short flat tracks. I don't think it's fair to say. And listen, the issue with Tyler Reddick's never that he's not fast. It's usually getting the finishes he deserved. And that's certainly the concern is that, hey, yeah, he might be really quick, but he might also throw away a good finish, similar to how he did at Phoenix earlier this year. For me, that's someone I want to play. That's someone I want to have, exposure to. He had 26 fast laps and 68 laps led at Phoenix. He was not a 10th place car. He was a damn near race winning car. So I look at Gateway, strong again. I think, like we've seen all year, the Toyotas are good on the short flat tracks, and his speed in practice was very good. My concern is that he had a tire issue in practice. That's my first concern. And the second concern is that he does throw away good finishes. He does have really good cars and not get the results that he should. But I do like him. I mean, I'm going to target him a lot as dominator play. You don't avoid the guy that was fastest in 10 lap averages. You don't avoid the guy that looked the best in practice, especially when he's been good at other short flat tracks this year.
Did he blow his tire after he ran those fast laps?
No,
because you don't think they're going to get more. So he came out after he blew and made changes and then ran the fast laps.
No, his fast laps were earlier in the practice.
Yeah. They can probably get. I mean, don't you think they might dial it back a little? Like you said, there's no adjustment they could make, so maybe they're not dialing anything back.
I mean, they can take camber out of it. They can take some of the, you can take.
I'm just saying, could they have backed off some of the things that made it look so?
Sure they could have, but so could everyone else in the field.
Right.
I mean, everyone else in the field is going to make adjustments. They're not going to run the race the way they, because what happens when they came with the tire test, the lap times weren't anywhere near as fast as they were in that practice session. They were like a second off what they were turning in the practice session. They were just so much quicker in practice that they were getting so much heat in the tires. They just weren't anticipating that. So, yeah, I do think they can make adjustments, but it's still the best car in practice. It's like on speed, what we saw in practice, it was the best car. We can't ignore that. And do I like Larson and certain guys maybe a little bit better? Do I trust them a little bit more to get results? Sure. But Tyler Reddick was super strong at Phoenix, and was really good at Gateway. He's been a top 10, almost borderline top 5 car across the board at short flat tracks this year, regardless of where he
I think the other good thing about Reddick here, sorry, I'm going to cut you off, is he's only 8,800, right? You're not paying, 9,500. So if he does just run, top 6 and doesn't get there, he's still not, he's still not killing you, right? He's still not killing your lineup. Are you at all concerned about, with all the carnage and chaos, just maybe there not being a ton of fast laps to go around, right? If we're going to run a ton of laps under caution, right? If you predict that, right, that's going to kind of cut into that fast lap upside. We could, if we run 80 to 100 laps under caution, which is none of the realm of possibility. We've seen it before, right? Does that kind of cut off limit a guy's upside, who is not starting up towards the front, right? Like a Reddick who may not, make it to the front. You're counting on banking 20 to 30 fast laps.
Yeah, there's still 250, 300 laps there for fast laps. You're definitely going to expect the race leader to get a chunk of those. Like Larson jumps out, you expect him to get a chunk. But, if he does, and what I would do if I was anyone that's running up front, I would start to settle in and back my pace up a little bit. So you could see guys throughout the pack, get those fast laps depending on who's taking care of their stuff. If you're not doing that, if you're not backing your pace off when you have track position, if you're not trying to maintain your tires as best you can, you're not doing things right. So I do think there's opportunity for Larson to get out there, maybe he gets a half-second lead and just kind of, okay, I'm gonna relax here. I'm gonna let you guys just kind of ride behind me. And so I do think I can see those being spread out. But even if we have 33% of this race under caution, we're still talking a large amount of laps under green, 250, 275 under green for fast laps to be counted. So there's still a ton of laps out there for that.
All right, good to know. Let's move on to row number 5 here. I think we got a couple good. Okay, no, first we move on. Tyler Reddick, where do you slot him in on Dominators? Behind Larson, above Blaney, behind Blaney?
Probably equal with Blaney. He's less dependent because of the pricing, right? Like you don't need him to be a dominator, like you mentioned, because he is so cheap.
Then for that, let's put him above him. How's that?
Yeah, and so that's nice, and I do like the speed. I think the speed's going to be decent. I am worried about tires, but I'm worried about tires with everyone. So I'm going to try not to spend. I just like with any of these guys, like Reddick in particular, is probably a good one. Is like I might not get overexposed. I might not go super heavy on the play just for the fact that this could be a higher variance situation.
All right, let's talk row number 5 here. We have in this row we have Chase Elliott, guy, top 5 look like in fast laps in practice, and back-to-back top 5s on short flat tracks too coming into this race. Chris Rebel, you mentioned he tested here, obviously won when we were at last time when we were at Phoenix this year. Looks like 2 solid contenders here for top 3, top 5 contenders here. What do you think? Especially Chase Elliott, his teammates also fast. It looks like all of them are.
Yeah, I mean Chase is as consistent as they come. He's got the best. I think he has the best average finish this year. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He doesn't put himself in a lot of bad positions. The concern for me with him is always like upside. What's the upside? Is he leading laps? I do consider him a contrarian dominator, similar to like Byron and some of those other guys we've talked about. I think he's a guy that could lead. I think he's in that group of 8 or so guys that I would think could do it. You look at his teammates. Bowman was second in 10-lap average. Larson was third. Byron was 8th, and then he was just outside the top 10. So they all have good pace, and Elliott's just good overall. So I do like the play. Like most of these guys kind of in this range, they're all relatively affordable. 8,700 for a guy starting 9th, 8,800 for Reddick starting 8th. Like that's affordable for a guy that we think could dominate, who could have a good result. But also, you got a bunch of guys in this range that could all hit. They all have viability. They all have the potential to work out. Truex is only 9,500. Gibbs is only 9,000. They're good place differential plays. You got, Busher and Chastain just below them who are viable, and then Bowman's 8K at 30 and 33rd. So, I like Reddick. I like Elliott. I like their potential. I think they do have race winning upside. Elliott doesn't show it enough, but he's super consistent. So he could just run 6th, right, and score 45, 50 points. I definitely think that's in play. And because he's 8,700, because Reddick's 8,800, those type of plays don't need to be 100-lap leaders. They just kind of need to score 50 points and be there. And then they become really good plays. And so I look back, I think it was Dover that I'm looking at here. Might be Kansas. I can't really tell because it doesn't say it. But started 9th, finished 3rd, 10 fast laps, scored 51.5 points. That's kind of what I'm looking for from this type of play, right? And Chase is super consistent. He hasn't finished outside the top 15 since like Coda, and that was a 16th place finish. Like he just gets good results, and so I think he's gonna be around all day. I think he's got the potential to finish top 5. I think he has potential to be a good tournament option.
I'm just starting to wonder though, like if those guys in that 8K range who start in there, like your Reddicks and Elliott's and stuff, are going to be able to pay off in this race. When we know it's going to be carnage, right? We know there's going to be chaos. Where cars are going to drop out, so we know there's going to be guys who's going to score massive position differential, who's going to outscore these guys unless they hit their peak upside and lead laps, right? Unless it's not chaotic, unless the chaos doesn't happen. But if it's going to be chaos, there's going to be position differential.
Well, what if the chaos plays in their hand and they become Sam Mayer, who won the race from a similar position?
Well, that's what I mean. Sam Mayer kind of like hit his peak, right? Like he won the race. That's what I mean. That's what I said. They have to hit their peak to get there.
But so does any place differential play. I mean, a place differential play, like their peak would be like 13th place because they got through carnage, right? Like Eric Jones is it's a situation where Eric Jones may get to 13th if everything goes his way, but that's still his peak. And that's still only 50 points. So at the end of the day, we're still talking about 50 points here. If Alex Bowman finishes 13th, it's 50 points. So it's not necessarily and that's a big part about finishing inside the top 5 or finishing 5th, 6th with some fast laps. It's you're getting to that 50-point number. And Martin Truex, who starts 30th or whatever, if he only gets to 12th, he's not outscoring Elliott finishing 5th with 10 fast laps or 12 fast laps. They're going to score roughly the same, but Elliott's going to edge that, right? And so you don't need all that. And then on top of it, unless you're getting multiple guys starting super deep in the field and getting to that 50-point number that are somehow allowing you to afford massive dominators who cost a lot, at the end of the day, you may just need the 6 most highest scoring drivers. And if that's Elliott at 52 points and it's Elliott at 52 points, it doesn't really matter about place differential or anything else, because when you see some of these races like this, the salary becomes less of an issue, and it really just becomes about getting the best plays all together in the lineup.
The best plays at the end, right?
Yeah.
Who knows what that's gonna be. Let's see. Okay, we didn't talk Christopher Bell. I imagine you like him.
Yes and no. So he's in a backup car. He crashes primary in practice. That's a concern. Starting at the back, he doesn't have early dominator potential.
I did not know that. Thank you.
Yeah. So the the concern one is it's going to take him a third of the race to get to the front, even if he has that ability. When we look at how tight the margins are at the Cup Series level, where you can be a race winning dominant car or be 10th, and it's like that minuscule of a difference. I don't know if they're going to have the same speed in this car. I don't know that they're going to be as comfortable. And that kind of worries me, especially when track position is going to matter when you got guys like Larson and Hamlin that are going to be so damn good. I'm not sold that Bell's going to be an elite play, the guy that's going to go drive straight from the back to the front and lead laps. He scored from 10th, so you don't get a bunch of place differential because he starts from the back. He scored from 10th. He's going to probably finish top 10. He's going to score well. But does he have that dominator upside? He's extremely expensive because he was the favorite coming into the weekend. And so it's not like he's 9,000 with the potential to finish third or fourth with 10 fast laps and score well. He's not that. He is a must dominate, must score, 70 points type of play to work out. And I'm not super bullish on that. I don't think that's going to happen at a high rate. So while he still has the potential to lead and win and all those things, because it's a short, flat track and it's Christopher Bell, I am tempering my expectations because he is starting in the back, because they did wreck the primary and all those things. So I think it's a harder road to hoe, so to speak, for Bell to work out.
Yeah, I don't think I can trust Bell to try to move to the field. I just can't. I feel like he's gonna get caught up in something.
I think he did that at Richmond, didn't he? Didn't he start at the very back at Richmond and just ran 20th and then had an issue? I don't know.
I just don't trust him to pass 30 cars without hitting a fender. I don't know. Do you think either of Chase Elliott or Christopher Bell are you putting ahead of Brad Keselowski in dominator potential, or are they both probably behind him?
I think Bell's ahead of Keselowski because the upside within that team is just higher. I mean, the upside within the Gibbs organization and the Toyotas and Bell is just higher. That speed is always going to be more likely to be pulled out of Bell, but it's a tough race for him. It's a tough situation. It's not going to be easy to get up there. But if he's there at lap 250 and leads the last part of this race, I wouldn't be shocked either. So he's in my mix. It's just it's someone I'm not. If he didn't wreck and he just started 10th, I'd be a lot happier about this play. But he's starting at the back. There's, it's not.
You would be as happy as I was when I came on here looking, not knowing he was in a backup car.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, let's go to row number 6 here. We got a couple short flat track guys, right? We got Joey Logano, showed a little bit of long run speed in practice. He's a guy who typically shows up on these types of tracks, especially inaugural races, right? If you want to play that, lean into that, whatever. I lost my train of thought. Denny Hamlin is also in there. We'll just move on. Denny Hamlin is also in here. Best on short flat tracks right this year. It's 2023. He's just been the man. I imagine Denny Hamlin goes pretty close to the top of your dominator plays today.
Yeah, Hamlin's at the very top for sure, or at least in the mix.
You said very, very top or not?
I don't know. It's not what I wrote in my write-up yet. I try to be consistent, but it's Denny Hamlin's short flat track. He's finished top 5 in like every freaking short track race ever, it feels like. He's a top dominator play. He's
only the third highest priced guy for some reason.
He's again, that's the real issue is when you look at other short flat tracks. He was 11,200 and 11,500 at Martinsville and Richmond. And he's 10,300. We're talking about pricing being low on all these guys. So it definitely helps to afford a guy like Hamlin. I think Hamlin's a really good safe play. I think he's a good option overall. Yeah, he's definitely one of the top dominator guys for sure. Like he just is on this track type. Much like at Richmond, though, he may not lead a lot. He won the race, but he didn't lead a lot, and he wasn't optimal. So I do think Hamlin's going to be good. I think he's going to slowly get to the front, and I do think he's going to have a good day overall. I do question whether he just goes out there and leads a ton, though. And so, especially with tire concerns, I can see him being like, yep, I'm going to make sure my tires come in. I'm going to make sure I'm there at the end. He's going to make sure he gets the best finish possible, and that might limit his overall upside. So I do like it. I think he's probably a secondary dominator play, which is crazy.
Is that like below Larson or ahead of Reddick, below Reddick? Like, what do you?
Yeah, I have Larson, Reddick, and Blaney as like my pure top dominator plays, and then I got Hamlin, probably my fourth pick.
Hamlin and Blaney. You said you had 6 to 7 guys you liked, but higher than Blaney when we started this.
Again, that's not what I meant. For the second time I'm having to say this.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It wasn't about picking 6 or 7 guys. It's about the organizations that we typically see in JGR and HMS having 6 guys. So there were 6 or 7 guys that I feel like maybe have the same potential or greater potential or are safer plays. Blaney starts fucking second. So if he finishes 5th, he's a bad play.
I'm talking pure dominator upside is what I'm ranking here.
Well, okay, moving on.
What? Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to upset you here. Diddy Hamlin, great play. Anything else to add to him?
Nope.
All right, next row here. Daniel Suarez and Todd Gilliland. You like anybody in this range?
No, not really. Suarez has pretty much always been a guy that fades, and Gilliland I think could be okay. I think he can kind of hang in this range, but limited upside. The only thing that saves him is price, but even that's got expensive since they bumped up his price a lot this week. So it's going to be hard for Gilliland to pay off 6,700 from 14th. If he finishes 10th, it could work. But, when you look at his recent results, it's pretty much 14th to 17th range. And so it's hard to get too excited about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Okay, we got dipping down here to Chris Buescher and Bubba Wallace here in this next row. Chris Buescher's obviously been on a tear, right? Doesn't show a lot of speed here in practice, but this is a track type he's been kind of consistent in. Looks like 5 top 10s in the last 10 races. And then Bubba showed some speed in practice. And again, a guy who's, showing a lot better on short flat tracks, starting up towards the front, finishing up towards the front quite a bit.
Yeah, Buescher's obviously been really consistent, really good. Starting 15th is fine. Like, it's good that he offers a little bit of place differential. He's in that group with Reddick and Elliott. I don't know if he has dominator upside like those guys have. So I don't know if I love the play, but if he were to finish 5th or 6th and score around 50 points, I wouldn't be shocked. I think there's a very good argument to be made that you may need like 2 guys from this range. And I think a lot of ownership is going to be spread from like Gibbs to Chastain or in Bowman. Like, you're going to see a lot of funneling of plays here because everyone in this range probably is going to project for 45 points-ish, 45, 50 points. And so I think people are just going to play guys like this instead of chasing dominators and trying to pay down. At least that's what we've seen in recent weeks. So I think Buescher is a good play. I think he's going to be a little bit over-owned for what he probably truly offers, which is 45-point upside. And so I'm not in love with the play. You look at his short track finishes this year, they're not as good, but he's still a really good driver. And it's obvious that RFK is quick pretty much week in, week out now.
Bubba?
I don't know.
4th, 13th, and 16th on short flat tracks this season. All right, 4 top 10s in the last 10.
He's okay.
You like Toyotas, right? You think the Toyotas are going to be fast? 7,700 is like a nice price.
Consistent.
Yeah,
he doesn't get good finishes. Yeah, I mean, he's fine. He's 7,700. If he finishes top 10, it's fine. It's definitely a secondary play. It's not someone I'm going to invest a lot in
I'm not trusting him
either. But if he finishes ninth, no one's going to be surprised.
I ain't trying to twist your arm to play Bubba.
I don't really like it.
I got it. All right. Ross Chastain, right? I mean, he's typically pretty good at Phoenix. This track may compare a little bit to that, right? 8,300 starting 17th. Be a little bit of speed in practice, it looks like. You have any interest in Ross, or I'm probably sure you don't have any interest in AJ.
Yeah, Ross is very annoying because he always does this in practice. I think we had the same discussion at Gateway. It's like, oh, look, Ross looks like he's a top 5 car, and then he runs 15th the entire race. Ross is fantastic in practice. He's one of the best practice drivers I've seen ever. And he does get decent results. I mean, even if, 13th, 12th, 11th, 7th, 8th, 12th, and then 5th last week, like a lot of good results in that range for the most part, but finishing 12th or 13th isn't getting the job done here.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to reach that like 5th place upside. And I don't think he does that. The one caveat I'll say is that Ross Chastain is the best restarter in the Cup Series. And you're talking about a race that could potentially have 10 restarts, 15 restarts, some nonsense. Like, we could see a lot of cautions, and he could get a lot of opportunities to make up ground on restarts. That's what he did in the Xfinity race. He was a freaking 18th place car, and he was third at one point. BC just out restarted everybody the entire time. So, that's the Ross thing. If you're projecting a high caution race, if he's not the caution, if we get 4 or 5 guys, potential top 10 guys that do have issues, then he's a guy that can find his way into the top 10 and score well. It's only 8,300. It's a fine tournament play. There's a lot of fine tournament plays. There's a lot of options.
I think that price is nice there for 8,300. And like you said, with the carnage aspect, you can start talking yourself into quite a few guys here, especially a guy who's got the talent like Ross Chastain on the restarts. Moving on, we'll kind of group in some of these next guys together so we can make some headway here. We got starting 19th, Justin Haley for 5,800, starting 20th, Carson Hocevar for 6,600. Austin Cindric for 7,500 starting 21st, and Michael McDowell for 7,200 starting 22nd. So we got, one cheap guy here starting 19th and Justin Haley, and a couple guys in that 7K range. You like anybody in this 19 to 20, starting 19th to 22nd? It seems like it's a.
I don't mind Haley. I mean, Haley's been he's been strong.
Looks fast in practice too. Fourth fastest in fast laps.
It's hard to ignore the fact that he's just kind of like a top 15 contender. And the same goes for Carson Hocevar. Like, he's been pretty strong, but Hocevar's price jumped to 6,600, which is going to make that more difficult. But Carson's 13th at the end of the day. No one's going to be shocked either. Both those guys got top 10s at Gateway, just avoiding the mess and getting to the end and good pit strategy and everything. I think they both have the ability to finish top 15. I don't know if they do it at a high clip. They're fine options. Those are risky plays. I'm more into the guy starting deep in the field, the guy starting 36th, 35th, 30, which we'll get to. I certainly like to place average plays over these guys more, but if all of a sudden Hocevar is 9th and Haley's 8th again because they avoid the carnage and they get good finishes, then they're going to score really well. So I don't think they're outside of playability either. It's not as comfortable as just playing Eric Jones from 32nd. Like, I kind of feel a lot better about that play than those two.
Yeah.
The other ones, Cindric and McDowell are not very good.
Cindric just won a Gateway. What are you talking about?
Okay, and if he would have qualified second and showed that kind of speed at any point, then I would have played him.
I'm just joking. I'm just.
I'd like Austin Cindric is a one-hit wonder. Like, that's it.
2. He's won a Daytona 500.
That shit don't count. Daytona doesn't matter. I don't care.
You just say a Daytona 500 doesn't count.
I don't care. When it comes to DFS and being a good driver, no, I don't care. No, I don't give a damn about Daytona or Talladega. It's cool. You finished third at Daytona. What the hell does that equate to?
It counts in NASCAR.
What?
It counts in NASCAR, though. It gets pretty big for that.
I think the thing that counts most for him is dad runs the show. They're fine. Like, they're just not going to finish well here at a high rate, I don't think. I mean,
I'm not going. There's no way you can get me excited to play Austin Cindric or Michael McDowell for in the 7K range, starting 21st and 22nd. Yeah. I just have zero excitement for that at all. So,
and that kind of goes back to the whole Ryan Blaney thing and the Joey Logano deal. Like at Gateway, you saw the speed in the Penske cars; it was pure and obvious. This week, you don't see that, and so now Cindric's 21st and McDowell's 22nd. Guys that qualify top 10 all the time. Michael McDowell's been a qualifying machine. Cindric's pretty damn good in qualifying. They didn't do that today. They didn't qualify extremely well. And even Logano, like it wasn't a great run. So I just don't think if their speed was clear and obvious, that's one thing, but it's not. I think Cindric and McDowell are going to struggle in the pack. I don't think they have the best racecraft, and I think they're going to struggle unless it's a high carnage race that plays into their favor.
I tend to agree. All right, let's jump down to this next range here. We got another guy start in that around that 7K range here with 6,900 and Noah Gragson starting 23rd. Look to have some speed in practice. I mean, he was fastest in fast laps. It looks like in practice. What the hell? And 5 lap. So had quite a bit of speed in practice starting 23rd. I imagine that's going to probably get a bump on ownership there. And then some cheap options here starting 24th, 25th, and 26th. You got Corey LaJoie, Harrison Burton, Zane Smith. What are you doing with this range?
I like Gregson a lot in tournaments, like a lot. Barry qualified up front, Briscoe qualified up front. Gregson showed good speed in practice. I think they definitely have some speed here this weekend. And that doesn't necessarily mean he has to finish top 10 like he did at Phoenix. It doesn't have to be that type of performance, but I do think this is a guy that can finish, 13th, score 40 points at 6,900. So I do think it's a really good tournament option. I think it's a good salary saver. The one thing when we think about like high variance races or potentially a lot of DNFs, like I think there's 12 or 13 DNFs in the Xfinity race, for instance. It's not just about the guys that start 35th or 38th and they end up finishing 16th, but the guys like I think Matt DiBenedetto started 24th and finished 7th, like that guy, and that could be Noah Gragson in a higher carnage race where he avoids things and is there late and gets a 7th or 9th or some finish inside the top 10, and that scores him 45-50 points, right? So when you have these higher carnage races, you have these higher variance races where some of the leaders get taken out, some things happen. All of a sudden, a guy that would finish 15th is finishing 9th. And that really boosts their score. And so I think Noah's going to have good pure speed. I think he's going to be a guy that can finish top 15 even in a normal race. But if the right carnage happens, right things break, I think he could finish top 10. So I like that upside. I like chasing that potential. But, the other guys in this range I'm not super into. Like Burton's a no-go. LaJoie's pretty bad on short flat tracks overall. Like LaJoie's too risky for me to get too excited about. Zane Smith hasn't been good enough all year. So, even if they have good days, I think it's like a 17th place finish. Like, hey, Zane Smith finished 16th or something, which is fine, but that's going to score you like 33 points or 34 points. And maybe, for Zane Smith's salary, we should probably consider what he costs. He's $5,500. Maybe that is enough. So, Zane may be a good play at $5,500 if he does finish 16th. And same thing for Harrison Burton, same thing with LaJoie. But I think in terms of pure speed, they're not going to be very good. And that's kind of got me skittish on them. But you might have to punt with one of these cheap plays. You may end up with needing one of these guys. And if Zane Smith's the one that finishes 16th and the rest of them are 20th, then he's the guy you would need. So I don't think they're write-offs. I don't like them skill-wise, and I don't like their upside. But price-wise, whoever's the one guy in this range that scores 35 or 40 points is the guy you need. And it could be any of them depending on how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to like almost to that, super speedway strategy where, it really can be anybody that's going to get caught up in this or anybody who's going to, get involved in the chaos or who's going to blow a tire. So, I mean, it may not necessarily say guys who are starting 36 who survive and reach that upside, they can blow a tire as well. And then it ends up being a Noah Gragson who or Corey LaJoie who winds up 8th out of nowhere, right, and breaks the slate. So but we do, have some obvious position differential plays on the slate here. Coming to right here, starting 27th, Ty Gibbs, right? I mean, pretty obvious 9K. He's been really fast. I know everybody's been waiting for him to get his first win. Imagine this would be a popular choice for position differential today.
Yeah, Gibbs. I mean, we should probably talk about Gibbs, Truex, and Bowman together. Obviously, there's pricing difference. Truex is 9,500, Bowman's 8K, and then Gibbs is right in the middle. But these are 3 really good place differential plays. There's going to be a lot of ownership on them. especially Bowman 30-30. He was second in 10-lap average. He was really strong in practice. So you get a guy who's going to be extremely heavily owned, but for good reason. And that price tag is going to make him extremely affordable. Truex is a little bit more expensive, 9,500. I think you almost have to sacrifice a Dominator potentially to get him, where you're like, okay, I'm going to play Larson and then the place differential guys, which is a little risky. Unless, of course, you're also getting in a Reddick or Elliott who's cheaper. And that's where I initially landed with my first build. Was I ended up getting Truex, but that put me on Reddick as my Dominator. Whereas Blaney or Hamlin was harder to get to in Bell, right? So you couldn't get back up to that second Dom at the top end. So, Truex, depending on how you play him, is probably going to change something else in your lineup. And so if you do play him, you're playing a guy that was bad in practice. I think he was like 32nd in 10-lap average. He really hasn't looked great at all this weekend. He's now officially retiring, which I never love playing retiring guys. For some reason, it just feels like once they announce they're done, it's like bloop, they kind of fall off a cliff. But I think there's also it's Martin Truex. It's a Gibbs car, long race. If they just stay out of trouble, he can be 10th and be a great play. So I think it's a good one. Gibbs is solid.
Truex the guy, is Truex the guy of those three that gives you the most concern?
Yeah, because he didn't show as much speed. Like, he just wasn't very good. You got to keep in mind, I don't think he's ever been to Iowa because he was in the Cup Series before this track even debuted. Whereas a guy like Keselowski dominated this place in the Xfinity Series, right? Like, he saw this track so much and just crushed it. Even, the surface is different, but like Keselowski, I think he had like 6 top 5s out of his last 7 starts here and 3 wins or something. Like, Keselowski dominated. So some guys have seen this track even in old iteration, and they have a feel of how to drive a track like this. This is not going to be a high tire wear track. Again, tires are blistering. They aren't wearing out. So it's not like Truex is going to be great on a long run because the tires are wearing out. I don't think it's going to be a pure pace type of race. And that does concern me. And I don't think his practice time was good. And there was a race last year where we did this, where he was slow in practice. He started deep in the field and he sucked. I'm pretty sure it was the second Richmond race where he just ran like 19th. And we're like, why? And I do think that's a potential, but you also got a guy starting 31st in an elite car who could easily finish top 10. So it's a good play, but don't be shocked if he underwhelms either.
Yeah, especially, in a race where we're feel like there's going to be a lot of caution, so it's going to, bunch the field up and give him plenty of opportunity to, catch back up and gain 3 to 4 positions on a restart or, in a run and bunch him back up. It seems like it'll be a little bit easier to navigate through a field without those long green flag runs, which could make those position for guys all pay off, which I kind of like that approach you're talking to, maybe playing all 3 of those guys and then paying down on the position difference. On the dominators, and it'll get you off maybe that Chalk Larson, who you said might be 50% owned, right? So not a bad option because you're not really sacrificing much upside either with those position differential plays. So
yep.
I like it. Let's talk about the rest of this trash garbage in this range here. Let's talk Kaz Grala, right? Ryan Preece, Daniel Hemrick, Eric Jones, John Hunter Nemechek, Ricky Stenhouse, Austin Dillon. Like, all these guys, right, can pay off with where they're starting, right? Because this will be a chaotic race. So, are we just mixing and matching and throwing these guys out on a dartboard, or is there a guy you like more in this range?
Yeah, so there's something that's important to point out is that Group A went onto the track in very bad conditions. And in qualifying, coming off of rain, leading into that qualifying with a very bad track, the guys that went out early was Austin Dillon. He went out first. John Hunter Nemechek, Daniel Hemrick, Kaz Grala. These guys really struggled because the track wasn't ready, for them to really put down lap time. So they were at a big disadvantage, and they all qualified poorly as a result. And then Eric Jones, same thing. He was early into the run, but he also got very loose out of 4 and ruined both of his laps. So he didn't get to put down a good lap at all. So you got guys that were at a big disadvantage in qualifying who are starting further back than maybe they should be. Dillon, Nemechek, Hemrick, they're not exactly the best on a week-to-week basis, but they were at a big disadvantage in qualifying. And so I don't think they're 36th and 35th place cars. I do think they're top 25 potentially cars, which is a really good base, really good floor. If we do see a higher carnage race, though, then all of these guys have the ability to finish top 20. And you got a guy starting at 33rd, 36th, 35th Stenhouse in that group as well. If they can finish top 20, they're going to score incredibly well. And then the price point on all these guys is really cheap, right? So 5,600 for Nemechek, Stenhouse 6K, Dillon 6,200, Jones 6,400. This is a lot of good value here. And I think being able to play in this range offers a lot of ability to mess around at the top. Like you can play two of these guys, and if we do get a higher carnage race, then you're going to have the ability to kind of play a lot at the top. They're going to hit because we get those DNFs and all that. They're finishing 20th or 22nd, scoring 30, 35, 40 points at a very cheap 6K range. And then you're able to pay up to Larson and then probably build whatever else you want in that top range as well. So not only do they start last, so they have good place differential upside, but I think they're better than when they start because of where they went out in qualifying. They were just at a disadvantage. So I think there's a lot of potential within these plays. Yeah, Austin Dillon's going to struggle to get past 33rd for the first run or two. Like it's not going to be pretty. You could watch it for the first 60 laps and say Austin Dillon sucks. I don't care about that. I care about lap 350, right? And I do think these guys have the ability to be good plays by that point. And then when you look at the other ones in this range, like Hemrick, like Gralla, same thing. Like I would not be shocked to see Daniel Hemrick 17th at the end of this race and be a good play. Obviously, you got better situations and a better driver with Eric Jones and things like that. But if you need a pure punt, playing Hemrick, playing Gralla is not awful. I think both have the ability to have decent races. We've seen that in the past. Gralla's shown up a couple of times and just had good finishes. And you're like, wow, Kaz Gralla, what the hell is he doing up here? Because he took care of his stuff. And so I think those guys are in play. I don't think we're going to see a lot of guys down a lap unless they have issues. Like if we do see a higher carnage race or a higher caution rate, that means everyone's still going to be on the lead lap. So at that point, it's really down to who takes care of their car, who has good pit stops, who maybe tweaks strategy a little bit and gets a good finish. So I think all these guys are viable, some for different reasons than others. Like Hemrick and Gralla are salary savers versus like having to pay an extra $1,000 for Dillon or Stenhouse or something. But they all have viability on what projects to be a high variance race, a high DNF potential race. And so I do like those plays overall.
Is there a guy in that range you might like more? Is that stands out more? Is it?
It's Eric Jones. Eric Jones is obviously
12th and 12th and 14th in the last two short flat track races. He definitely pops off as far as finishes this year on short flats compared to the rest of them. So
Eric Jones is a guy that always finds his way into the top 20, and that's really the key. It's like, oh, he was 19th at Charlotte, he was 19th at Sonoma, he was 19th at Kansas. Like, how's he always 19th? And
if he finishes, he'll be in the top 20. Yeah,
it's like 19th from 30 seconds, a really good score. And I probably can get that even in a lower variance race. Like I can get a good Eric Jones performance in a normal race because that's just what he does. So I do like Jones a lot, but I do also like Nemechek, 34th at 5,600. Nemechek's very hit or miss. He definitely has his issues. He definitely makes a lot of mistakes. But when it goes right, from 34th at 5,600, they could go very right. So for upside purposes, I do like that play. And because I am envisioning a higher carnage race, I think that's the type of guy that can do really well if that plays out.
You think a higher carnage race than Joe Nemechek? John, he's going to make it.
He's probably going to be involved in them, if we're being honest.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I just called him by his dad's name too. So, Boomer and me. It's been a long day. Let's wrap this bitch up. Let's get to the let's wrap it up and get to the cores, right? Core 4, pour 4 more. Let's get it. I know it's going to be hard for you to probably pin down 4 core guys to play with this, shit show we have in front of us. I don't think I had enough corn puns this race.
Larson's P1 for me in terms of dominators. I love the upside. I'm definitely going to have him in my core. Alex Bowman starting 33rd at 8K is 100% in my core there. I love everything about that play. I'm probably going to get in trouble with that play in particular, if I'm being honest. Eric Jones starting 32nd at 6,400 is going to be in there as well, just because that's where I want to invest a decent amount of my cheap ownership in. I'm going to end up in that range, probably a decent amount. And then I'll probably go Truex just because I'm going to have a decent amount of them. I think that's the right he is a core play. He's going to have high ownership. He's going to be someone that I think can finish well. And so he's going to be in like cash lineups for me. He's going to, be in safer situations. So that's a core play. Maybe someone I might go a little underweight in tournaments in, but in terms of being in cash lineups, being, heavily owned, Truex is definitely going to be there.
Yeah, I'm shocked you went Truex when he gave you the most pause out of those position differential guys. I'm surprised it's not Gibbs.
It's Martin Truex starting 31st. It just for the fact that the field, like last week at Sonoma, he started 21st. That was the first time he started like outside the top 20 this year. I'm looking all the way back to Vegas. Like he always qualifies up front. He never is a place differential play. And so maybe that's a sign that the car's just not good. Maybe he is bad, but I'm going to end up with a lot of them. Everyone's going to end up with a lot of them. So even though I don't love it, it's still a core play. It's still like a driver similar to Buescher here recent weeks where it's like you just got to play him. Like you can't avoid it. Even if you don't love the play, you can't avoid it because he may pop off. And similar to Sonoma last week where it was like, oh, wow, Buescher and Truex are second and third or first and second. And how the hell did this happen? They're 20th place cars. Well, it could be that simple. So I'm not avoiding him. He's 9,500, which is pretty affordable. The only thing, again, I think it's a question of, do you get off Truex for Gibbs to give a little bit more salary, or do you get off Truex to get a dominator like Hamlin, like Byron, like Blaney? I think there's a lot of reasoning to do that, to not play Truex and to play Hamlin or Byron or Blaney as a second dominator in your lineup. And that's why maybe in tournaments I'll be a little bit less, but for cash, you got to have Truex, I feel like.
All right. Give us a pour for who are 4 guys that we need to be underweight on or do not touch this week. Even though it's going to be hard, right? Anybody can pay off.
Yeah, every week I feel like it's really hard. Kyle Busch is number 1 for me. I'm fine getting away from Kyle Busch. He just it's bad vibes there, like really bad vibes. Not really interested. Another guy that I'm gonna try to be a little bit less obvious. Like Barry obviously fits in there, but I'm not gonna say him. I'm gonna say Austin Cindric. He's coming off that win. I'm hoping that he sees a little bit of ownership, and I just don't like to play. I don't think he's going to be very good, so I want to go Austin Cindric. AJ Allmendinger starting 18th. I think I'm going to be comfortable going underweight on him. He's actually ran good this year. He has good results. I just don't like him from that position. Not battling all the place differential plays around him. Jones, Dillon, Stenhouse, and Priest all are right around him. And so it just doesn't feel very, very smart. I probably need to give some sort of top-tier play as someone who I'm going to go very light on or fade. I don't feel comfortable, but I'm going to say Joey Logano starting 11th. It's going to be hard for me to get to him, if I'm being honest. I like Gibbs and Truex in that range better. I think I like Keselowski more as a dominator threat. I like Reddick and Elliott cheaper than him. I'm just not going to end up on Logano a lot. So I think I feel comfortable putting him in my poor 4. He has the ability, but I don't think they have enough speed to truly dominate. So I'm going to play a little bit risk there and say Logano.
All right. I like it. Kyle Busch, Cindric, Dinger, Logano. Guys, we're not playing. Let's go to 4 more guys that we think we can probably find a little leverage at this week.
Leverage is hard. I'll say Chase Elliott is someone I'm very interested in for that leverage part. I don't know how heavy he'll be ownership-wise, but I'm going to have a decent amount of Elliott because I do think Reddick sees a lot of ownership. I think people will see the 10-lap average. I think they'll see some of those things. And so I think Reddick will kind of see ownership, and I think Elliott may come in under that number. But I've also seen it other times this year where Elliott's been 10% higher than I was expecting, and there's not really a rhyme or reason for it. And so I think Elliott should be lower owned than Reddick by a little bit, and I think flip-flopping that ownership makes some sense, even though I do really like Reddick as well.
I think Reddick's going to come in. I mean, I know Reddick's got the speed, but he's still going to come in lower owned than Bowman, lower owned than Larson, lower owned than Truex, lower owned than he's probably going to be like your 8th or 9th lowest ranked.
Yeah, I think both those guys. So I think Reddick's probably going to be low 30s, and I think Elliott's going to be mid 20s. think Elliott could be 22 to 25, 26, and I think Reddick could be like 30 to 35.
Yeah.
But I can also see that being flipped, just like I'm suggesting to flip it. So, I think they're both good. They're the same play essentially. It's just I think Elliott comes in under owned, and I think he could be a little bit safer overall, which is nice too. So I do like that. So I got 2 more, right?
Yep. Chase and Reddick so far.
So this one makes me a little squeamish, but I do think it has potential, and that's Ricky Stenhouse. Ricky's obviously crash risk type guy. He obviously isn't someone that you think is going to go straight to the top 15, but he's starting 35th. He's 6K. He's been about a 20th place guy most weeks. He's actually been really kind of safe this year. I mean, when you look at his crash rate, it's not as high. I do think he's a guy that can get into the top 20 and do well. So I do like Ricky Stenhouse, and I don't think people are going to play him. I don't think he's going to see a lot of ownership. And
I wasn't thinking about playing him. I wasn't thinking about playing him at all. So
I really think again, this is all from the perspective that it's a higher carnage race, but man, I think he's a top 25 guy even in a normal race. So I think he's a guy that can get close to 30 points in a clean race. So I
think the real caveat here though is you're getting a guy who is starting 35th, who has that top 20 upside, who's going to be 10%, 11% owned. So I think you kind of got to lean into that. Even though as squeamish as it is to play Ricky, I think you do kind of got to lean into that upside there at that ownership. And lastly, number 4.
Is it bad to say Denny Hamlin? Because I want to say Denny Hamlin. It's not a leverage spot. If it's got to be a leverage spot, I'm going to go Brad Keselowski. Because I do think Brad's going to be good if he can get out front at any point. He could be a really good play. And Brad's going to be in the teens in terms of ownership, right? You're not getting a guy that's going to be 25, 30, 35% owned. I think Brad's going to end up probably 17%. So, if he does end up dominating, it could be a really sneaky good play that kind of separates you. So I do think Brad's a good pivot, but I think Hamlin's the play I would be on more. Like, Larson's probably my core play. Larson's the guy I'm the heaviest on as a dominator, but Denny Hamlin does not miss, it feels like. Denny Hamlin is as good as it comes. You literally you throw away Sonoma because he sucks at road courses and he had a motor issue. Second, fifth, second, fourth, fifth, first. I think he's
incredible this year. Been incredible. Yeah. You can't beat it.
And the only time he finished 11th at Martinsville because they pitted, not because he wasn't running top 5. He's too damn good. I think Hamlin's a phenomenal play. I do think Larson's the guy, but man, how do you not play a lot of Hamlin?
Yeah, you got to play Hamlin, right? But you gave
I've
us
almost
5 more.
talking myself into Hamlin over Truex, by the way.
Well, you gave us 5 more instead of 4 more, so that works out. Let's get to the winner here. Do you think that this week, since we've talked all the chaos, all the carnage, do you think we see a surprise winner this week? Who's winning?
I don't think it's outside the realm of possibilities that we see a surprise winner because it is the first time on this track. We don't know what these cars are going to look like 30 laps in the run. Do we see a lot of time?
I think we see somebody stupid win, like just somebody who's up front. We're like, what the hell? Like, why is he up front? Like,
I think Brad Keselowski can kind of be that guy, right? I think it opens up the door a little bit more, just because it's more on. That's kind of where Joey Logano shined a lot, recently on these random one-off races or things like that. But yeah, I do think Larson's the guy to beat heading into the race. I don't want to pick him because that's lame.
Give us the winner. You got a good record going. Don't threaten that by just because you want to be cool. Just pick the winner. That's all the people care.
All right. Let's go Brad Keselowski. I'm going Brad. And I'm picking Brad because he has perhaps the best pit crew on pit road right now. This is a situation where if we do see a lot of pit stops, Brad's pit crew has been absolutely fucking on it. You look at Darlington, the reason why he ran top 3 the whole race is because his pit crew was on it. Tyler Reddick had number 1 pit stall, and that saved his ass. Brad Keselowski just had the best pit crew on pit road that day. And that's kind of been the way it's gone for the last 2 months. His pit crew's on it. He's on it. Starting 5th, good pit stall selection, good everything. I'm going with Brad. I'm not going to play Chalk Larson here. or I'm not picking Chuck Larson. I'm not picking Hamlin. I'm not picking the favorites. I'm going Keselowski plus 1,400 on DraftKings because I think a lot lines up well, and I think it's an outside the box pick.
I love it because I came into this show liking Brad Keselowski, wanting to play Brad Keselowski, and then we got started, and you freaking kind of talked me off of Brad Keselowski, and we've gotten to the end, and now we're back on board, and now I'm be playing Brad Keselowski again. So I love that we've made the complete circle. Hopefully, people have made it to the end and say, no. But
I hope this show helps. I am very like up and down on this whole race because I don't feel comfortable in anything, and nobody should. Like any person who's feeling really good about the slate is full of shit. So like I just don't feel like I can see any of those guys leading. I can see like that group of 8, any of them leading, any of them winning. I can see randomness. I can see a lot of guys blowing tires and even more chaos ensuing. Like I think the slate's really wide open. There's a lot of good plays. I think the race could be wide open. I think it's going to be super entertaining. I'm building probably one lineup this week.
That's me. I think I am too.
I might just build one lineup, but I think it'll be an entertaining race, which is the key. So hopefully we can enjoy it from that perspective. I think it could be a complete shit show. I do think there's some viability. I'll probably do the mini max this week. Just give me
one lineup for mini max. One lineup, no, 151. No, yeah, I'm not 151.
That's what Matt does. He likes to run a train in it. But no, I'm gonna I might mess around with that just because have some fun.
Might as well, right? If there's a week to try it out, it's this week. Once again, Larkin, it's always great you doing this for us and breaking these down. This was a long one, but I think that was well warranted for a new track, and we had a lot to discuss, and I think we are all at least better informed. I don't know if we're in the right spot to where we're going to make some money, but at least we're going to have a good strategy going in. And we'll just kind of let the chips fall where they are, right? So let everybody know where they can find you at.
Yeah, everything's at dailyfanracing.com. More importantly, right now, follow me, follow Jason, follow or like and subscribe and all that to this channel. If you made it 90 minutes and you're that big of a fan of mine, you're probably already subscribed or something. So to the website. So definitely check us out there if you're not, but just, best way to support the show is subscribe here and talk to us on Twitter and have some fun with it, because that's, at the end of the day, I kind of want to start having more fun with DFS, and this is a good way to do it. This show and, chats and Twitter conversations and things like that. So reach out to us there and let us know what you think. And thanks for checking it out.
Yeah. And happy Father's Day, everyone. Good luck. I hope the fathers out there win it.
Somebody with a son or a daughter.
Yeah.
Or they. Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys. Catch you next time.
You gonna stop it? Or are we just gonna keep?
I'm trying. It said have